Welcome to Safety Pilot, everyone. I'm Caleb. I'm here with Andrew and Alan on the line somewhere. Today we're going to be starting a new series. What's the series called?
It's called Flight Review.
Flight Review. We're going to be reviewing flights done by other pilots, things in aviation, because aviation is interesting.
Yep. Aviation news, what's happening, what happened, what's interesting. Great. Let's jump right into it. So today we decided to focus on somebody else's flight. This is quite an interesting flight that I found in the newspaper of all places, and that I found, or Alan found something online about it. So we're going to discuss this accident. This is this is aviation, general aviation news, and the article, they have 5 pages of aircraft accidents. So I jumped to the first one, which is definitely the most interesting. This is from September 7th, 2023. 7 accidents in 7 days. And now Caleb has not heard this story.
No.
Alan read a different article about it. So there should be interesting information here for all of us. We're going to go...
I believe...
You believe?
I believe the actual crash happened in 2021. In July is when it actually happened.
Oh, so this is our new series on old news.
This is old news, yeah. All right, so we're going to go crash by crash. There are 7 crashes. The article actually starts off by saying it actually happened in 9 days, because there were some times in there where there was maintenance happening between these crashes. The overall thing that I was most interested in when I found this article is finding out how the guy didn't die, and it is remarkable. So let's jump right in.
7 crashes in 7 days is impressive.
It is actually impressive.
9 days.
And I think that's why he's, as far as I know, he's still flying. So the crash, it begins with an older pilot in his 60s, and he is going to buy an airplane. The airplane is an amphibious aircraft called a Seawind 3000. So it's a flying boat. That's what I mean by amphibious airplane. And this gentleman is...
So it's like a Lund fishing boat with wings?
Yes, exactly.
All right, I got
And the engine's a little bit stronger. Okay. So he finds out, and he's in the Midwest, and he finds this aircraft, Seawind 3000, that is being sold in Southwest United States.
Okay.
So we're talking different climate,
Sure.
different atmosphere
Bigger
altogether.
bugs.
Bigger bugs.
Are they bigger?
So he finds the seller, and the seller says, the airplane's great, why don't you come down and get it? So this avid flyer who hasn't flown in some years says, I want to be there. So he sends some money to hold the plane. Then the seller gets a little angsty, asks for more money. He sends more money, and then eventually he ends up going down for the plane. But he's already paid for this plane, in full. He sent a check for over $100,000.
Did you do a pre-buy?
No pre-buy has been done. So here's our first hour.
Good for him. Good for him.
And so he gets to the plane. The seller starts to tell him that, hey, by the way, the trim doesn't work very well. The brakes are a little iffy. I think one of the brakes was installed backward or reversed. Is what
those are all things that are kind of good to hear before you buy.
Yeah.
Right?
So here's where we talk about the need for a pre-buy. And the seller eventually just kind of disappears. Your airplane, you paid for it. Have fun.
Sure.
And the buyer kind of shakes it all off. He's like, I'm a pilot. It'll work out. I'll get back home and I'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes off.
It's mostly downhill, if you think about it. The Midwest is low elevation.
Sure. Just kind of roll it down.
Southwest is high.
Alan, you still with us?
I'm still with you.
All right. It'll a little quiet.
I'm waiting for the first crash.
So this old man, this older pilot.
Wow.
Sorry, he's not old man.
We're just a little
He also finds out there's lost logs, and the seller tried to put the logs back together by the best of his ability, by his memory.
Lincoln logs.
Yep. And it's experimental, so probably built in the guy's garage, or somebody's garage. So
we got a pencil whipped airplane.
And it hasn't been flown in 2 years.
Hasn't been flown.
The buyer takes it off.
Brakes.
No pre-flight. Takes off.
Doesn't have brakes, but that's okay.
No, I think it has some sort of brakes, but it's not in great.
On water though,
the
so
brakes
you
are
don't
not
even
great.
All right. Anyway, so there's a crash that happens.
So the pilot takes off,
Mm-hmm.
and he needs a lot of yoke forward pressure to stay level.
Okay, so the tail wheel? Are you talking about in the air or on the ground?
In the air.
All right, okay, never mind.
No, it's a tricycle. And he ends up doing a gear up landing. He takes it up to do some practice. Task saturated. He also came off of a red-eye flight. Just a lot of work. And he does a gear up landing. So that's our first crash.
Do you have anything to say about that, Alan? Gear up landing?
I think probably the most interesting thing about this crash was he said he just had some hangar buddies make repairs. Yeah. And he said he felt abandoned.
Well, after the gear up landing.
And that's the way he was going to go with the flight. And that is just absolutely a billion red flags for me.
Sounds like he forgot to do BC Gumps. That's what I think.
Well, it goes beyond. It's even just the fact that he just had so much just a desire to get this plane home. You know. All right, so we're gonna move forward because that was the first crash, and that was it's probably one of the least interesting.
Gear up landing.
Gear up landings that happen.
So how does he go fly? How does he
So
crash it
so he
again?
has some buddies there, get some guys there, who just kind of get it up on jacks, look at it, maybe straighten some things out, and the plane's good to go. I think he said it was down for like 3 days, and he's back in the air. Now he's coming, and he gets up to, I think it's New Mexico. So he's gotten pretty far, and it's nighttime. And he already has to divert from his original departure, his original arrival airport, and he hasn't landed at night in 20 years. He has not logged a night landing in 20 years.
Right.
Maybe he has flown at night, but he hasn't logged a night landing in 20 years. And the plane has no landing light.
Perfect.
So you can land without that.
I've
but
done it before.
It adds on.
Circuit breaker popped.
So coming into land, obviously he's saturated, he's probably tired, he hasn't flown much, he's not current, he's not proficient, and he stalls high, hits the ground hard, and takes out a few runway lights.
Are you kidding me? He didn't take out landing gear or anything.
No, not yet.
Sweet mother. All right. Okay, so that's
And you got to hit these things pretty hard the lights, they break, you can put them back in pretty easy, landing lights, but
it sounds like he probably just came in low, which is pretty common.
Perhaps. The article says he stalled high. I don't know if this was actually a pilot who wrote
Well,
this.
okay, high round out, black hole landing makes sense.
Yeah, that doesn't actually make sense. Anything from the mechanics perspective over there, Alan?
Yeah, it says, and I quote, he says that I'm a mechanic, I can do this, end quote. And
Yeah.
it doesn't
It's
say that
relating
he's
to a
an
night-
AP
a night
mechanic.
landing?
It says he previously built his own plane, but
Yeah.
I think
Well,
I
they
think
said
this,
experimental.
I think this was way out of his league, in my opinion, just because, I mean, we're already up to crashes 2 and 3, and at that point, I would definitely be wanting to take a closer look of what's going on and why these things are going wrong. And I think it'd be better just to leave the plane, get a mechanic, have it thoroughly looked over, and then look at what you're dealing with before you even try to fly again.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Is that the airplane right there?
Yeah, that's the
It looks
airplane.
it looks kind of like an icon.
A little bit.
I mean, it's an older
engine's up-
version,
the
clearly an
engine's-
older
the
version.
engine's up on. It's
I'm not an airplane guy. I don't know anything about them.
So there's our plane. Actually, it was after the second crash that the plane goes down to maintenance for 3 days,
Okay.
and I think that's where he was kind of like, I can fix it. After the maintenance, he goes up for a third crash. He goes up to take it off to see how the maintenance did, and he kind of bounces, skids, and takes out a couple more runway lights.
Same airport.
Same airport.
Same airport.
As far as
Jeez.
I can tell. So things still aren't going well, but they get it fixed. And every time they kind of stop to look at the plane, they find more mistakes or more things wrong with it. But he continues on. So this is now June 29th, 2021.
Okay.
So this was over a year ago. He starts now flying to Nebraska, or I guess he's. So here he's flying out to avoid weather.
Sure.
So now we have another added factor here, weather, and in a hurry. It says that he squeaks through a storm in New Mexico, and he's having to use a rag on his knee to keep the yoke far enough forward and keep enough pressure on it. So basically, the yoke's pushing back. He needs a lot of forward pressure. The rag and knee method. So he comes into land. So I believe now this is in Nebraska. He comes into land, and he ends up having his first landing. He skips, bounces. He ends up doing four go-arounds, and finally comes in for the final landing.
Okay, so the airplane's trying to just pull itself into the air, right?
Yeah, it's nose.
I mean,
up.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So no
really
wonder
far
he's
off CG.
he's stalled into the ground and is bouncing down the runway.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's just a hard airplane, a difficult airplane to fly.
Sure.
So
Well, there's got to be more.
eventually
than
he
that.
skips. He ends up going off the runway this time, but
Okay.
he did 4 or 5 go-arounds, trying to control the airplane, and sounds like it's just fighting him for his life. And eventually he gets it onto the ground. So that's probably a CG problem. Yeah. Oh, and while he's on the ground, so they stop again for a couple days to do more maintenance, and they find out the aircraft is out of CG. Go figure.
Wait, so they've stopped. So this is now like 1 or 2 days between like the belly landing and now this.
This is the day after the belly land. Or yeah, so this is a couple days after so the belly landing was the first landing.
Okay.
And that was a couple days. That was on June 26th.
Sure.
This
All right,
landing, now crash number 4 is June 29th.
Okay.
Yep. But again, plane's still flyable apparently. And also, so through this, the FAA contacts him several times. Like people found out about these, and he talked to the FAA every time. He just kind of explained it. I think it was 3 times, and he just kind of kept going. So the FAA didn't stop him. While he's on the ground there in Nebraska, he also buys a new trim servo motor, and there's a white and a gray wire. He doesn't know which one goes on which is, which side goes up, which side goes down. So he ends up putting them on, and as he takes off, he realizes he puts them on wrong.
Backwards?
Yeah, backwards. So he aborts the landing.
Aborts the takeoff?
He aborts the takeoff, sorry, yeah. So he takes off, this is around, he was there for a couple of days of maintenance, takes off.
Couldn't the ground test?
Aborts
Couldn't the
it,
ground test
and he lands, he goes back around to land, and he bends the landing gear. So he hits hard.
Oh my word.
Yep. So that's number 5.
I'm imagining him having to just lock the elbows, push the nose down to keep it from.
I wonder if it was just like oscillating up and down. I would think the way that the engine's mounted so high on this airplane, it puts the center of thrust quite a bit above, which would obviously help with nose down tendencies. So I wonder if that's just a problem with this airplane, that it's really tail heavy because the engine's so far back that they have to put it up that high to get enough nose forward momentum.
Could be.
Because it's an amphibian, I would think it's up that high just to keep it,
Sure.
out of water and stuff, just to make sure. For that.
Well, whatever the reason for the prop position, what was happening with the airplane doesn't sound normal for the airplane.
No, for sure not. So if everything that this
It sounds to me like there's a control system, a control surface issue, like the elevators out of trim maybe, or out of balance.
I think it's a balance thing more than anything. He just doesn't have the rudder or the elevator authority. But my biggest thing when reading this is, how did he find so many people to do maintenance? Like, he had somebody jack it up, he had somebody repair the landing gear when he bent it. And like, if they had heard half of this story, they shouldn't have gotten near that plane.
Yeah, they probably didn't hear half the story.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's more crashes coming. I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah, so that was crash number 5.
This has to end somehow.
We only have 2 more crashes,
All right.
I believe. So during his illegal maintenance, he put on the wrong wire. He landed, bent the gear, got the landing gear fixed. Now he's flying, and he makes it pretty far here. He makes it all the way up to almost the UP, like up into northern Wisconsin. Or it is, I think it is the UP, up into northern Michigan. It looks like, and he's at Beaver Island. So he's flying up to Michigan, and while he's getting close to his destination, his left gear drops without command. He says he hears a thud, and then he looks, and he has no hydraulic pressure, and he's almost out of fuel. So the perfect storm.
Perfect storm.
So he naturally is like, I gotta land. He puts the gear down, and the nose gear doesn't come down.
So all right. You only need 2/3, right?
Well, at this point, I wonder if he tried to lift the gear and try to land in the water, but the gear just with no hydraulic pressure, he couldn't lift the gear.
Yeah.
Maybe
At that point, if you could just get the gear
the
up,
emergency system's probably going to bring him down and won't bring him back up.
it's just gravity. What were you saying, Alan?
I was just saying, I don't know exactly where this is, but there might have not been any water close by to even land on.
Well, it says he's in Lake Michigan by the Beaver Islands, so I think he was close to the water, and he's close to his final destination. So anyway, he lands with the nose gear up. So
Gear up landing.
Yep, gear up landing.
Another one.
And he crashes nose up.
Another one.
They do the repairs, and he talks with the FAA after this event, and he continues on the next day. And now we're on to number 7. So as he's flying, he realizes the plane won't climb above 5,500 feet, and that's not it. His flaps don't go down, and his gear won't come up. So,
All right.
and then the engine dies.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Is there anything else that could go wrong?
Well, so this is crash number 7, the final crash. So his gear's down, his flaps won't come up, and
So,
I believe
okay,
he's
okay.
over Lake Michigan.
So gears won't come up. Flaps won't go down.
And
Engine
the reason why
won't
he
go.
had
Engine won't-
his
fan
gear
won't
down,
spin.
the reason why he had his gear down was because he had promised to
keep
it down to the FAA.
To the FAA. Yeah.
Because he had 2 gear up landings in a
Yes.
week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he keeps it down. In op the button.
Now his engine dies and he can't get it up, and he's over Lake Michigan.
So it doesn't work to go up, or he's like got the sworn oath to the FAA
I don't
that
think
he
it would
won't
go.
lift it
Well,
up.
we don't know. but I don't think it went up. Based on the, the condition of the airplane, I don't know if it has hydraulic flaps or what. I don't know why the flaps wouldn't work, but anyway, he does a gear down landing into the water.
What the heck? This man, he's flip-flopped everything.
Yeah, and usually
Okay,
that
so they
tends to
must
land
not.
to
They must
nosing over.
They must not have gone up.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
the
This
gear
wasn't
wouldn't
just.
come
This
up.
wasn't just a sworn oath.
So he
This
says
was,
he hits the water, he goes down like a submarine, like you'd imagine. This thing looks sleek. And then he comes back up, starts bobbing, and he's like, I'm in a boat, but it starts to sink fast.
Mhm.
So he gets out, he doesn't have a life jacket, which you're required to have when you fly over water without a gliding distance. But according to him, it was a soft landing. And the plane sinks.
Why did it sink? With the gears down, it's not waterproof.
It might have taken on damage.
Yeah,
I don't think
structural damage. Sure,
Yeah, with the gear down too.
I'm willing to believe anything at this point.
And the Coast Guard comes and saves him.
Nice.
So that was 7. The plane sinks, and nobody's ever seen it again, as far as I know. So
It's
that's
probably still down there.
yeah. So that's 7. So
So
I don't
if
know.
you're on a
Maybe Caleb and Alan. I've spent a lot of time talking here. Do you have anything? I don't know. Like what stands out to you, or maybe what?
I mean,
There's a lot to take away here.
I think
ahead,
that
Alan.
just the amount of things that went wrong from the beginning should have been a humongous red flag in saying a lot of things aren't right here and this is not wise or safe in any way, shape, or form to continue this flight when you have all these things happening. In so many ways, everything is going wrong.
Yeah. I've never had a gear up landing, and I'm no expert on gear up landings. I don't believe that they're considered accidents by the FAA, whether because the damage is minimal to the airplane or because they just happen so often the FAA doesn't want their numbers to go up. I don't know. Don't quote me on anything about that, but I would say if I were to get into a gear up landing, that would probably stop my flight in that airplane until I had gone and got more instruction. And independent from the instructional aspect, there's also I want my airplane to be probably more than just looked at. Something on that probably needs to be fixed. It sounded like in that first one, it was not a mechanical issue. It was a complacency issue. But so there's training that probably needs to be done. But I would want more than a 1 or 2 day look over of the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
You probably need to rebuild the keel on that airplane. Maybe that's why it sank on the last, well, a lot of other things happened after that, but
Yeah.
that's just what I think.
Here he was specifically talks about, and we haven't talked to the pilot, but just the amount of effort he had to put in to control the airplane led to him just being task saturated. Obviously, yeah, it does come down to, you got to remember to put your gear down. But based on the fact that he hadn't flown at night in 20 years, makes me think that he wasn't necessarily really current in flying. But definitely, I think here we definitely saw the giddiness, like of buying the airplane sight unseen, sending the money before he was even there, as far as I could tell, and then rushing to get it back. But I understand those feelings. Like I can't just say like, oh, this guy was a horrible guy. He's lucky to be alive. He's an amazing pilot. The fact just not that I would take him as a role model, but the fact that he's able to control it through 7 landings and still want to fly again shows a lot about his nerve.
Bold,
Yeah, bold.
maybe not amazing.
Maybe not amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And the fact that the airplane was able to fly after that many crashes.
In the article, it says that after this entire ordeal, he says he doesn't see himself piloting an airplane again.
Yeah.
And
That's
also
unfortunate.
noted that the plane also wasn't insured either.
Oh. Yeah.
So
Well, that was just yeah. That makes the crash obviously much worse.
That's a tough one.
very very
Probably
unfortunate.
get insurance before you buy it.
Yeah. So here some of the biggest takeaways are just on human factors. Like obviously the decisions. I think it's easy for all of us to think like, oh, I wouldn't have made that decision. I wouldn't have gone on after the 5th crash, after the 6th crash, or even after the 1st or 2nd crash. Many of us probably say we wouldn't buy a plane sight unseen. Although I've seen it happening a lot more often with the market right now. People just be like, I need a plane. There's one available. It looks good. I'll buy it and then figure it out. And there are quite a few crashes of people who just bought a plane and just flying it back crashed it. And they weren't as lucky as this guy. So I think there definitely are those external pressures of getting it home, and I'll figure it out when I get home. And obviously him just feeling alone and feeling like I built a plane before I can do my own maintenance, even though I don't know the plane I'm working on. All right, well, This has been our first instance of flight review, just looking at flights that happen. We'd love to look at the future at some of our flights, and if you have flights that you've had or flights that you found interesting that you've heard about, we'd love to hear about them. If you could write them in the comments or send them to us. Just as pilots and as mechanics, we're interested in learning more about this stuff and just talking about it, and we'd love to have you guys involved as well.
Yeah. Come listen to us and talk with us in the comments, and share about your stories if you want as well. We'd love to hear some of your stories and maybe do reviews on them.
Yep. Stay current. Stay safe. Fly safe. Alan, have anything to say as we close out?
No, I think we pretty much already covered it. So on to the next on to the next one next time, right?
All right. Fly safe. We'll see you in flight review 2.